Now that's a lot of stamps. So I wonder who had to stamp all of these, and all of these, and all of these, because this came all the way from Japan. It arrived this morning. I've already unboxed it, so there's unboxing videos on the net. And yeah, it was kind of a tight fit, but it didn't take me 15 minutes to get it out of the box like it did the guy that you've probably seen already. Anyway, let's have a look at this in the studio. Yeah, Korg MS-20 Mini. Yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long time. I'm sure you have been as well, and you're continuing to wait. Like I say, I bought this from Japan, from eBay, and so the stuff that came with it, I'll show you the contents of the box in a moment. I got a little parcel from the seller too, which was kind of cute. But in a nutshell, the question is the power supply. Now this is the Japanese power, and it actually says in big text, well, bigger text, 100 volts. But if you look in the small text for the inputs, it says 100 to 240, 50 or 60 hertz. It's basically a switchable universal, nothing to worry about. And basically what they've done is when they're selling these, they're just putting on the relevant cap here. And it's a shame they didn't give you a whole bunch of them so you could use them yourself if you moved around, if you're on a gig or something. But it's not a big deal. You just need a travel adapter. Now this is a Japanese, which is technically the same as an ungrounded American plug. So you just get yourself a travel adapter for the USA, and this will plug in anywhere else in the world. Doesn't matter, as long as you've got nice stable power, 50 or 60 hertz, 100 to 240 volts, you're all set. Now the unit itself, it's pretty nice. The keyboard's pretty good. The first key's just a little bit lower here. I seem to remember, it's been a while, but I think my Micro Korg was like that as well. The mod wheel's not as nice as the original. Button, don't know how long that will last. Now the knobs, yep, the top knobs are the big ones are quite nice and sturdy, but there's a reason for that. If I take these caps off, we'll see that, I don't know if you can actually see that. I'll get a light over here. The top one, the cutoff, is a different style of knob than the resonance. So the reason why these don't move as much is because they're a different type of knob, and it's probably just down to the law of the pots that they needed for particular jobs. But it seems that all the small ones are kind of wobbly, and these are switches. It's just these ones, but that are stronger. But it's kind of okay. It's not a big deal. I mean, I use pots, panel mounted pots on my modules. They're fine too. Buckley uses them as well, so if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for Korg. Yeah, it's not really anything to worry about. The rest of it, the construction is quite nice. These jacks, yeah, they're okay. These kind of sleeves that look like nuts, they're fake. If you look at them closely, get that focus in, they all happen to be in the same position. Now, I've never seen jacks with nuts on them, or all the nuts are in the same place. It's because they're not real. These are basically just sort of sleeves that are holding the jacks in place when the panel the PCB is mounted directly to the chassis. So yeah, these are kind of fake, and they're okay. They kind of look a bit tacky. I would have preferred to have real nuts on there, but there you go. They're building it to a price, so that's what you get. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this hooked up onto some real audio. But first I'm going to show you what came with the unit, and then I'm going to show you how to make a v-trig to s-trig converter so that you can trigger it, the MS-20, from your modular. The cost of that is pennies. It's really not expensive. And then I'll show you how to use a modular sequencer to drive the MS-20 without a fancy converter. Well, we'll see. All will be revealed. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make a v-trig to s-trig converter so that you can use your Eurorack gates with an MS-20 Mini. Now for this, you're going to need two jacks, an NPN resistor, transistor, and a resistor, 10k, and obviously something to mount it in. I'm going to be using this pre-drilled panel for mine, and the circuit is very simple. On your input you have your 10k resistor. This goes to your NPN. That's to ground, and this is your s-trig out. I mean, it really is that simple. You'll have your gate here. So this will be a Eurorack gate. This will obviously be connected to your input jack, one of those, and obviously the shield of the jack will be going to ground, and it's the same here. So basically when you send the voltage through, it will activate the transistor and it will basically connect the s-trig to ground. So this is actually, even though this is technically an output on the converter, it's really an input, because you're basically shorting the MS-20 to ground, which is causing the s-trig. That's the way s-trig works. It's the opposite. And that's it. So I mean, basically, jack in, 10k resistor, NPN transistor set as a switch to ground the s-trig on the output jack. And I shall build it and we'll come back to you. And let's get this back in shot. And so we can see we've got the input, which is going to the base on the transistor. The emitter is going to ground, and the collector is going to the jack output. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at what came in the box. Well, as they promised, we have reprints of the original manual, and this one is in Japanese for the most part, but some of it is in English, but that's just the controls. But all the titles on mine obviously are in Japanese, and all the text in the back is Japanese. But if you happen to have a Japanese one, you can download, you can find the original manual online, and it is essentially the same thing. Also, we have the settings examples. Now this is half in Japanese and half in English, and perhaps the original was like that. Well, that's handy, so I've got something to read through. I'll try out some of these patches obviously, and then we also get the mini supplement, and it's in all the languages, but it's just warnings, and then it says the normal setting, which is unpatched obviously, and let's see if it says anything about MIDI. And it's just a small introduction, and it does say that there's improved signal to noise with newly designed VCA. Now there's been a lot of controversy online about this, and there is some background noise, but they're not saying the whole synth has been improved. They're saying just the VCA has been improved, so maybe it's just noisy. But I've noticed it. I've set it up on my Moto, one of the input channels, and I can only hear the noise if I crank it up, and that input channel's cranked up like plus 12 dB to be, you know, it's loud enough as everything else I'm recording, because a lot of the stuff in the modular is quite hot. So it's really not a problem, at least not with my unit. It may be a problem with other units. It's definitely there still. If I turn up, you know, my monitors so loud that they would blow if I played a note through them, then I can hear the background noise when the filter or nothing's playing, but it's a non-issue, at least for my unit. And as you can see, the MIDI spec here, it does nothing. It does do a control change 120 to turn everything off, and it receives the notes on off, and that's it. And the basic channel is number 1. That's it. That's all we get. And yeah, there's nothing more in the manual there, I think. Oh, there's some. Let's have a look. Let's fold it the other way now. Oh yes, the English. Well, there's all sorts of languages on here, but it's basically, you know, basically turn it on, how to basically do the timbre, about the MIDI, about the computer. Doesn't say anything else. You can change the MIDI channel, which you can't. It's only note on off. It says you have to have, for the USB, the Korg USB MIDI driver must be installed. Download this Korg website. That's a shame. It's not class compliant USB. Well, it might be, but I should try that at some point. And it just gives you some basic spec and how to adjust the knobs and stuff. Okay, so, oh yeah, and then, like I say, we've got this other book that came with it. This, I don't know if we're going to get this on the European or the Western versions, but it's all in Japanese, which is a shame. But it's basically, it seems to be lessons on synthesis. I'm pretty sure I can skip this, but it would be nice for some of you. It would be nice to read it if it was in English, but I have no idea if this came with the original MS-20 or if this is just a Japanese thing, or, you know, it says 1965 on it, Dr. Moog, and I don't know, I suppose that's supposed to be him. And yeah, it's kind of cool, some illustrations and stuff. But as I say, all the text is Japanese for the most part, which is a shame. At least for me. And if you're Japanese, it's not a shame, of course. And yeah, so let's go have a look at the unit. Yeah, don't worry, I'm going to spare you the bad keyboard solo. What I'm going to talk about is, let's see if I can get the camera in the right place, the noise issue. Now, I've got this going into a Motu 828 Mark III directly into one of the analog inputs, zero gain, and in Logic it's not very loud at all, so I'll probably have to gain it up 10-12 dB to get it into a signal level I'm happy with for recording. But the thing about this background noise, it is there. Let's have a look. If I turn the mixer down, and so there's no VCO coming through, filters are all closed, and I press a key. Let's see, I'll get one that's on camera so you can see it. Now, if you listen to this recording with some headphones or something, you're probably going to be able to hear it if you turn it up. Now, I'm going to turn the mic off while I do this, so that because it's about as noisy as the microphone. So I'll turn the mic off. And turn the mic back on. So you can hear there is a very, very tiny small amount of bloody noise there. And yes, you can hear it with headphones. It's not a big deal, really. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. Unless you get one that's actually making white noise coming out that you can distinctly hear. It's fine. So let's see. We want to trigger this with the Eurorack. So let me grab a nice long cable. And as I showed you earlier, I made how to make a trigger, because what I've got here is, let's get this on camera. I've got a pressure points, and I'm going to take the touch out of the pressure point. This means every time I press one of the pads on the pressure point, it makes a gate signal. Now, here's the other end of the cable. If I plug this in to the trigger, keyboard trigger in on the MS-20, touch a pad, nothing. So we come up to my little thing that I made earlier. This is the v-trig. That's the one I showed you before. And if I take the output of that into the keyboard trigger in on the MS-20, and I press a pad on the pressure point, but yeah. And you can also patch into the EG1 instead from the adapter. And if I play a key, okay, so the next thing is we're able to trigger the MS-20 from a gate. That's no problem. But what if you want to use a sequencer? Let's say the Rene, which is over here. Well, that's possible too. You can buy yourself a converter, or you can buy yourself a fun little cheap box called a Monotribe. Yes. If you've got the Monotribe and you've done the MIDI interface and you've got the very, very latest firmware, which allows the CV gate, when you send this CV gate, it will output MIDI notes for the CV gate. So it's basically a MIDI to CV, a CV to MIDI converter. So then we know that the MS-20 Mini has MIDI input. So what we can do is we can hook up the Monotribe MIDI output to the MIDI input on the MS-20. Put some power into this. Let's switch this on. Let's just turn all these patterns off. Yes, that'll do. Let's see if I can record the synth. And yes, but maybe I've got the wrong connection on there. So you see, I can actually drive the MS-20 from the Monotribe. So the next thing to do is basically turn all that off. And now I drive the Monotribe. I'll just put it up there on top of the rack and find two nice cables. And we've got input CV. We'll take that from the Rene. Oh, that's the wrong cable. That's a special one. So we take input, quantized CV from Rene. Let's just start the clock off so that we got the Rene is being clocked. And let's do that. And now we need to take a gate out, but the Rene gate out is a bit it's a bit thin. So I'm going to put that just through a maths just to beef it up. I'll use the X gate, trigger that, and then just plug in the output for the gate into the Monotribe. And that's already started, so let's So you get the idea. Basically, the Monotribe can be used as a converter, which is pretty damn awesome. But bear in mind that you do have to have the MIDI kit enabled, or you can hack that yourself, or you can buy one ready-made, or perhaps you know somebody who can make one for you. Then you just need to do the CV gate mods, or just make a special cable, or again buy a separate box. But for the price of a dedicated converter, I don't think you're going to get much cheaper than buying a Monotribe. Even one with MIDI, you buy one second hand, you're probably going to save some money, and you've got a fun little box to play with. Anyway, that's it for MS-20 videos. I'm now going to, well, I don't know if it's going to be a full teardown. I'm going to pop the end cheeks off of this, take it to the workbench and take some pictures. So if you want to see what it looks like on the inside, you better visit to www.dinsync.info. Yes, and I'll see you there.